This is Into the Story, the podcast where you learn English with true stories from all over the world. Stories that connect us and inspire you to get where you want to go. Hi there, it's Bree, and welcome to this special Into the Story conversation episode. In these bonus episodes, I talk more with the storytellers. I ask them questions about their life, their experiences, and how they learned to communicate so well. My goal is to help you learn English through real stories and real people. Today, I'm sharing my conversation with Hanul Kim. If you haven't listened to last week's episode called Do It Scared, then I recommend that you go back and have a listen. In that story, Hanul tells us what it's like to work as a news anchor, a news presenter on live TV in South Korea. In our conversation today, Hanul shares what it was really like to work in the fast-paced world of TV news, and also how she learned to speak English clearly and confidently, even though it's not her first language. If you want to feel more confident when you speak English, you can join my free newsletter. I send tips that will help you speak clearly and open new opportunities. Okay, so Hanul, in your story, you take us from a moment in your career where you get an opportunity to be a news anchor, and you take us through to a moment where you make it big and you have your own show. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that show. What was it? What did you cover? Mm-hmm. Tell us about it.
So it was a weekly show called The Foreign Correspondents. It's a current affairs and a news show where every week we invite a panel of experts, 3 panels, and we discuss current affairs happening in Korea from a foreign correspondent's lens. So I was the solo host for the show. I didn't have any co-hosts. So I was responsible for orchestrating the whole show, starting from the opening to the closing. My script was over 30 pages long. I had 17 to 18 questions to ask each of the panels, kind of juggling between the 3 people. And we also had live connections from experts around the world, so I had to prepare questions for them. But the biggest task was to be like an orchestra conductor. My job was to make sure that we finish on time, that we don't go over time and one person doesn't talk too long. Or my producer told me, if you see someone deviating or start talking about nonsense, you got to cut them off. And if you feel like they are saying something ridiculous about Korea, they told me, like, you are representing Korea. So you are the voice of Korea. So if they try to, taint our country or, I don't know, say something in a skewed way, like, you have to defend Korea's stance. I'm like, okay, that's a tall order. So I was like trying to play the judge, timekeeper, at the same time, making sure that I have all the questions in queue. And sometimes the order changes and I have to multitask. My producer's talking into my ear and saying, like, cut, like, go to the next question. And as I'm talking, somebody's talking into my ear, my brain is trying to process the information and I have to pretend that everything is normal. So that was not easy. So
it sounds like a very high stress job. I can imagine also a job that a lot of other people wanted. In your story, you explain that broadcasting is a very fiercely competitive field.
So it's very catty. But one thing about broadcasting, it's a very results-oriented industry. They don't care how many years you've worked in the industry. If you're bad, you're bad. And they don't care how old you are. If you are young, but you look like an old lady, you're old. Because the truth is, you don't wear a label on television telling people how many years of experience you have or how old you are. You are being judged for that second, that moment. So if you are bad, then you're out. If you are good, then even if you're a newbie, you get to anchor the news. So I've seen people who've been doing this for a long time, but they never make it or they don't get a chance. And they have this grudge, this bitterness towards people who are good. Let me tell you a funny story. I don't know if this will, but someone, this didn't happen to me, but someone else, one of my female seniors, she didn't get picked for the anchor position. So she sabotaged the other female anchor's car. And she like scratched the other female anchor's car, and she got really mad and she wanted to like go through the CCTV tapes to figure out who did that. So it was kind of
Wow.
those.
Wow, that is. And do you feel like that story is very telling of the industry as a whole? I mean, of course, you can't say that about everyone, but it's very much like every person for themselves. You fight, and if you don't get it, that that sounds like a movie.
People are very
crazy.
jealous, but they don't show it.
Okay.
And they're very secretive. No one will ever tell you where they got the source or what they are doing.
Okay.
So I was in the dark.
Yeah.
No one would tell me anything.
Okay. Have you ever, I hope this doesn't offend you. Have you ever watched the movie Anchorman?
Is this with Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
I don't recall.
Oh my gosh. Hanul, you have to watch it. It is very, very funny. I don't know if you enjoy like American Hollywood humor, but it's hilarious. And you see that these in the movie, of course, that anchor people are portrayed as, very down to earth, very normal, like you say, delivering information accurately and credibly. However, they have huge egos and they think hugely of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you have to watch the
I
movie.
have.
You're going to laugh so hard. Okay, so being a news anchor is this very high pressure job, very competitive. And then you have the added pressure that you're representing your country. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like South Korea is a very patriotic country. So it's important the way that you present it. It's important that you are representing your country in a very proud, respectful way.
So to give you a little backstory of where this is coming from, Arirang TV is a state-run media channel. So think of it as the BBC or NHK News for Japan. Every country has their own national channel where you represent the government. So we're not really a mouthpiece for the government, but our mission is to spread news that's happening in Korea in English for foreign viewers. So a part of our job is to correct historical inaccuracies or prejudice or any type of misinformation that the foreign journalists are covering about the country. So our job is to offer the Korea angle to the story. So our news is not being told by foreign journalists in the wrong way. So that was kind of my task.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And in this way, English is the language that we all communicate, right? It is important, and no one, you nor I or anyone listening to this, is going to deny that it is important to speak English well in order to have your point of view heard. And something I really appreciate about you, Hanul, is that you speak English incredibly well.
Thank you.
And specifically, you do it accurately. You take your time to speak and to say all of the words correctly. And that's something that's so important. I think if anybody is learning English and you're at a level that you understand this podcast, you should be focusing on clarity, not speed, not perfection, clarity that we can understand you, and confidence, which I know is also what you teach, being
Mhm.
confident. How did you learn to speak so clearly and confidently?
Oh boy. I don't think no one taught me that, but I always approached it with the mindset of putting the audience first. I always believe that the viewers, the audience is king. If they cannot understand me, then I'm not doing my job. So there's no point of me speaking really fast because they're not going to understand what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to impress them of how smart I am by using all these difficult words or industry jargon. I just wanted the average viewer to understand what is happening in the world, at home, in a language that is clear, that is direct, and easy to understand. I thought that was my job. So instead of trying to show off the vocabulary, I just tried to pick a word that most people would understand that also accurately describes what is happening. So that comes from my news background, journalism training. I didn't take any classes. I got yelled at a lot, and my copy editor and my boss always butchered all my scripts and my stories. So I kind of learned it on the job.
Getting feedback, getting real-time feedback, right?
Yeah, yeah, real time
Probably
and
also
multiple
watching
times a day.
yourself.
Multiple times a day, you get feedback, you get criticism, and I had to go through this adrenaline rush 2 times a day. We have to meet two deadlines for the 12 o'clock newscast and for the 6 p.m. newscast. And we are racing. We are trying to beat the clock. And if you're someone who cannot perform under pressure, this job is not for you because we are racing the clock twice a day. And I just feel that I can still feel the feeling of blood just like rushing from my brain, like all the way down. My hands are shaking, my legs are shaking because you have to meet the deadline. You cannot start, it cannot be 12 p.m. and the anchor says, "We apologize for the disruption. There's been some delay in our news reporters. Car broke down and then we don't have the news." Like, no. So it was meeting the deadline was like a life or death situation for us. And what I've learned about myself is actually I thrive under deadlines. And here's a funny thing. I'm a big procrastinator. I wait until the last minute. So when I was in school, I'm that girl who would cram the night before the exam. And I always thought that was a bad habit of mine. But somehow I really push myself. I perform well when I am under pressure. And for the longest time, I thought that was a flaw, but it actually turned out to be an advantage when I was a news reporter because we have to rush everything and perform when they're under extreme time pressure. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
There's so many questions I want to ask you. I feel like you're just a wealth of knowledge. One thing that I find really helpful in improving communication and improving language skills as well is watching yourself. And you
Oh, yeah.
probably had to watch yourself a lot. And there's this practice that I do with clients where I record them answering questions spontaneously. And then I have them watch it. And it can be very painful for some people, but I feel it's necessary. And almost all of them say something that I find troubling. And I want to be able to change. And it's that they feel embarrassed about their accent. They feel embarrassed when people can hear where they're from. Now, I speak Spanish well. I think I pronounce quite well. But if someone can hear that I'm an English speaker, that's fine. I don't want them to think that I'm Spanish. I am very proud to be Canadian. How do you feel about your accent? Honestly, like I can hear that you perhaps are from Korea. I don't know, but you speak beautifully. How do you feel when I tell you that?
Oh, wow. Uh, for the longest time, I tried to hide my accent. I thought it was embarrassing. I thought people would look down on me if they find out that I'm not a native speaker. So I really tried to correct myself. But it's only been a couple of years until I embraced my Korean identity. I even went as far as changing my name on my passport. So my official name is Christina Hanul Kim because people were mispronouncing my Korean name, and I just wanted to be part of the mainstream. I didn't want to be marginalized, be the foreigner all the time. For once, I wanted to blend in and not have people ask me where I'm from or having to explain where I'm from. But only in recent years, I became more comfortable with the idea. Okay, so what? I'm not American. I'm Korean. I make mistakes in grammar. I mispronounce words or I say something that's funny. Of course, because English is not my first language. So instead of trying to hide my heritage or my nationality, I just tell people straight up. And I think that kind of freed me from the fear of making mistakes. And I always try to think of it in an opposite way. Like, for example, Brie, if you spoke Korean in the same level of fluency that I'm speaking English right now, I would be so impressed. I'd be like, wow, very good, Brie.
Exactly.
잘했어요. 너무
Exactly.
한국어 잘하시네요. But
I wish I did. I wish I did, Hanno. But what you're saying is absolutely right. Let's say that you're worried, or listeners are worried that an English speaker is looking down on you because of your accent or a grammar mistake. The reality is that a lot of English speakers are monolingual. And speaking to a person who speaks more than one language, it's like so much credibility because it's wow, you have a whole universe of abilities that I can't even begin to understand. But there is one caveat. It's that the person speaking needs to feel confident in their accent and be unapologetic. Never apologize for your accent, ever. Because when someone is speaking English as their second, third, fourth language and they make some mistakes, but they're unapologetic and they're confident, there is very few things more powerful than that.
oh yeah.
They are speaking in a language that's not their own, and they're delivering information that's valuable, and they're just focusing on the facts, and they're putting themselves out there as, yes, I'm communicating through a medium, a language that I don't absolutely, I don't dream in, I don't think in, but I can still do this, and I can do it maybe as good as a native speaker because I'm more clear. I know how to speak in a clear way. I was just interested to get your take on accent. And this thing of your name, I think it is very powerful that you say, my name is Hanul. And the first time that we met,
Yeah.
I asked you how to pronounce it. I hope that I'm pronouncing it correct. But I love, and I love that you say, no, this is my name. And you can make a small effort to pronounce my name because I am making a massive effort to speak English. So I think that that's a very important thing, that embracing your identity. If you don't embrace your identity and you don't embrace your accent, it's very difficult to convey confidence.
Absolutely. 100%. I think true confidence comes from knowing who you are. That is the first step. Know who you are, know what you're standing for, and understanding your value. Because whether you speak Korean or English, whether you are, light-skinned or dark-skinned, you have value. And English is not a disability. You are still very smart and intelligent. You're very valuable. And I really want people to know that language should not be a measuring stick of how intelligent you are. It has nothing to do with intelligence. But I do believe you have to clearly communicate or verbalize the message across. If your English is poor to the point that the other person has no idea what you're talking about, you need to work on that. But as long as the audience or the listener understands what you're talking about, I think that's fine.
Okay, amazing. Oh, that's such a valuable perspective, and I feel so happy to hear you saying that. I want to ask you just a few more questions. They're kind of silly, but
No worries.
if I
Go ahead.
gave you €5, so I looked this up. That's about 7,000 won.
Okay.
And you were going to the corner store. I don't know if you have corner stores there.
We have
Yeah,
convenience stores.
store?
Yeah.
Okay, convenience store. So I gave you 7,000 won, about €5. You go to the corner store. You have to spend it on yourself because I know
Okay.
you're also a mom. You can't spend it on your kids. It's on you. What do you buy?
I would buy a Haagen-Dazs ice cream,
What flavor?
green tea.
Okay.
Yeah, because my kids, they don't like green tea, or I always choose strawberry. I don't like strawberry ice cream, but my daughter's favorite is strawberry, so I keep picking it. So if I had to spend it on myself, I would buy myself a Haagen-Dazs ice cream,
Okay.
green tea flavor.
What is your favorite Korean word that English doesn't quite capture?
챙기다. 챙기다. It's loosely translated as take care of, looking after. But you can 챙겨 a person or a belonging, but it doesn't quite translate into English.
I find it interesting, these words that exist in certain languages but not in others. I think it gives a little tiny window into a culture. In English, we have the word, and in Canada, we use this word very often, and it's cozy. And it doesn't quite exist in Spanish. But of course, in Canada, being in your house and being cozy, being warm, being comfortable is a really important thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in Spain, it doesn't translate the same. Acogedor would be a word here, but it's not the exact same. So I always love asking those types of questions about words. Okay, my last question, because we've gone way over time. I would be a terrible news anchor. What is
You'd
the
be fired.
worst? I would be fired.
Yeah, they'll cut you off
gone.
in the middle and back to the next episode. Yeah, you'll be fired on the spot.
Last question. What is the worst advice that you have ever been given?
Oh dear. The advice was, you probably don't notice because you're new, but this has been the way that we've done it. So I don't care where you're from, how smart you are. This is the way things are done here. So do it.
Follow the status quo, because that's the way we do things here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That there's always room to do things better, different, or just your own way.
And being different is bad. Or if you're being different, you don't have the passion. They kind of think you don't want to work here. You're trying to be you're trying to be difficult. Or
Ooh.
yeah, so
That's a big one. That's a big one. Being a difficult, especially woman. Don't be a difficult woman. Just follow the status quo
yeah, just do it.
and fit in.
Yeah. Don't try to be a smart cookie. Like, don't try to show off how smart you are. Just do it. This is the way we do things here.
Hanul, you have so much insight into communication and confidence, and I could just speak with you for hours and hours, but I know you don't have hours and hours. It's a Friday morning here. I'm starting my workday, but it is a Friday evening in Seoul, and you need to get to your family and on to your weekend. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Bree. Thank you so much for having me here and letting me share my story. This has been precious.
I really enjoyed this conversation with Hanul. Today, she is a public speaking coach, and she helps people, especially non-native English speakers, to speak with confidence. She has created an incredible guide that can help you, specifically with your mindset. You can download it now at coachhanul.com/ITS. And I will also add a link in the description of the podcast below. Thank you so much for listening to Into the Story. Don't forget to follow the show so that you never miss a new episode. And if today's conversation inspired you or helped you learn something new, please leave this podcast a 5-star review. It helps more people find the podcast, and I really appreciate it. All right, that is all for today. Until the next time, I hope that you have a good time, or at least a good story to tell.